Good morning, everybody. Isn't it a pleasant and enjoyable morning? So, I would like to discuss certain things that maybe my relatives can have some input when the newly elected president is inaugurated and goes into the White House. So, he's at least prepared. So, I have relatives of mine that are from the Zangrillo and Cantisano family, and I just like to give you a little brush up. So, the second time when I was away at college, I was at Cornell University. I did stuff at Harvard. I did stuff at Dartmouth. And at that time, I was in the construction field. Prior to that, I was given this thing from my relative of mine. Most construction people should know what this is. It's called a little tool baggie. As a joke, I was given a little locker. I was given this little baggie. So, the reason why I'm bringing up that bag is I need to bring up this matter right here. You see that, ladies and gentlemen? Certified in cybersecurity. This is just one of my books that I had. Besides this book, which has to do with life and health insurance. Besides this book that I'm going to explain or get into details, which has to do with HIPAA and etc. Okay. So, I have this book right here. Essentials to Economics. This book I've used so many times you can't even shake a stick. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is it has to do with the FTC right here, boom. Has to do with that organization whatsoever. Because it's very important when it comes to Bitcoin and your privacy rights. You have to have a person, an attorney, when you have a bank account or you're a financial advisor, etc. You got to have that person doing tax returns. Now, this is where I need to explain. So, I was at Queens College. I had to transfer over to SUNY or City University of New York, Brooklyn. Then I went to NYU. Reestablished, took the MCAT exam, scored well on the MCAT exam, studied this section. This section I'm going to specifically talk about because it's the equivalent of what the healthcare has to do with education, and it has to do a lot with this Bitcoin and etc. because it has to do with UCC code. So this is an emergency care. Most EMT students have a book like this. Now if you go to this specific section right here, it says HIPAA. Now I'm going to open this up on my iPad because I want to make sure that it's as clear as can be. Okay. The Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. This one right here. This little section. You're going to see it. I'm going to even put it on my little Twitter feed as well, besides HIPAA. The reason why I'm bringing that up is because it has a lot to do with this digital wallet and etc. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because I built some of that programming. When I was away in college, I studied, besides cybersecurity, after I studied programming. And I was in Cornell. And this is something that a lot of these hackers do, that the federal government should give pamphlets out to citizens on a regular. So, I have this website here. I'm just using this website as a sample. So, it gives you a basic definition of what is Bitcoin. There's the QRL code. And I'll show you the sample of it as best as I can on the screen. If I can't do it, I'll just explain it. When you have Bitcoin, because this is something I told them about, you have to have a physical copy of your records. So when tax season comes around, and you go to really should not be using Intuit TurboTax. I would recommend not using that. I would get a financial advisor. The first thing you should do is get a financial advisor, so that you're ahead of the game, whether you're single, married, or having a girlfriend at that time. You should always have a financial or a financial advisor that also deals with accounting as well, if you're in business and if you want to become an entrepreneur and etc. That even includes if you're a blue collar worker as well. You have a plumbing business, etc. Because they have helped a lot of us out in those instances. The reason why I'm bringing this up, that QRL code can get hacked. They have a way of creating phishes. There's a way of doing that when you're on a domain or you're on the website. They make it look like it's an actual QRL code. The reason why I'm bringing that up is because a lot of the streaming services, they're trying to use that, and the problem is those things can get hacked easily. The reason why I'm bringing up the Family Act, or the Family Act for privacy, besides that, the reason why I'm bringing up that matter, and I'm going to get into detail on that, is because you need to be told the whole story of how Bitcoin really got designed. They're not really telling you who's the person that designed it, how was it designed, and who was the person that told them 50,000 times you can't build things without someone's permission, which has to do with the contract. So, now I'm going to get into detail of who I really am. I did not build it. I was completely against it. See, the reason why I'm against it is because it has to do with this organization whatsoever. Because the backbone of our society is Department of Education. And it's very important that they try and explain to students as well as teachers or administrators or etc. that you have privacy rights. And they can't impede on those privacy rights, especially when it comes to banking. Just do it. It'll course correct in a second, but I'll show it on my phone as well, besides this. I'll do it with the Twitter. The reason why I'm bringing that up is when I was at the college itself, the person that designed it was a relative of mine. The thing is that you cannot, it's under the code because Bitcoin is considered to be a coin. It is not a legal tender. A federal note has to have it backed. Alexander Hamilton, if you look in the foundation of Alexander Hamilton, and when the founding fathers came up with the designs of the federal note, they designed it where it meets certain standards. That means you can't get rid of money to begin with because it's considered unconstitutional. Now, I'm going to take out $1 and I'm going to explain why you should always, if you're in business, should understand what a promissory note is and how to use it to your advantage. Because that's considered debt. You always want to use, you could use a policy, a certain policy as collateral for business, or you could use debt, which is important. Now, let me see. Okay. If you see this section right here, I'm going to read it to you. You could zoom in it at any point. This note is legal tender for all debts, public and private. So, you really, under the FRED, which is FRED, which has to do with the stock market, which has to do with deposits for M1, and even in the algorithm system, especially for constitutional law, because it states this. You cannot sign anything into the Constitution, amendments, etc., without the permission of Congress and Senate. Congress and Senate can get override by the United States public when it becomes a tyranny organization. The organization has become a tyranny organization because this person right here explains it. About the Communist Manifesto. This author, which I met him at one point. He had a big seminar. He talked about certain things in college, which is about ethics and compliance. But all in all, HIPAA, the female education and privacy, you have to, in order for you to operate, you have to go around taxpayers. Number one thing is the reason why the president won to begin with, they didn't want communism to begin with. Our foundation, ladies and gentlemen, is not a democracy. It is a republic. Those people who are in Congress and Senate represent you. But you have every right under the constitutional laws to write bills, to write certain rules and regulations, and then you bring it to your congressman or senator, and you can bring that up in general. You have every right to do that. And it comes with certain things like the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve does act independently, but they have monetary policy that they have to specifically deal with. They have jurisdiction with Department of Financing. They have jurisdiction with licensing when it comes to commercial banking or commerce law, and etc. And if you guys don't understand these rules, they're just not going to explain it to you. And this book is very important too as well, because it talks about cash flows and the quadrants. You guys had lost apartments buildings, businesses, and your systems run on assets and liabilities. And according to these rules and regulations, you have to have certain things private. You can't have the number one thing, the reason why I'm bringing all this stuff up, you cannot have Experian, Equifax, and etc. not be on not give you public records. So if you have a credit card, a mortgage, etc., they should keep your records safe. But what they're doing is they're not really doing this ethically, and it's illegal. They're giving out your information to these banks, and they're just applying for credit cards and sending you stuff in the mail. Now the big thing with the post office is there's a thing called mail fraud. I'm going to also put this on the Twitter as well. Mail fraud is a big crime. So they can't, if you get a credit card and someone does anything fraudulently, it is considered mail fraud. You have to report it to the proper authorities. And the proper authorities are going to tell you you have to do a police report. That police report has to go to either the Secretary of State, the Office of Inspector General's office, or etc. And that has to get resolved. You can't have people just open up accounts. And that's a big problem because, well, really Title 18 has to do with the federal government. It has to do with mail fraud, which that's 18 USC section 1341 talks about mail fraud. You can't harass people with collections. So let's just say you fall behind the bill and it goes to, I don't know, a corporation, and they call you up. The first thing, the reason why I'm bringing this up with privacy, you're on a video recording line. The first thing you put down on a pad, you can write it down on a piece of paper. On a little piece of paper. You may put it on the back of a paper like this. And you can say it out loud. Is I don't give you permission to record me because it's invasion of privacy. It has to do with the amendments. Privacy acts have to deal with that specific matter. Because when I took the life and health insurance, it has to deal with that specific thing, which has to do with privacy. The Fair Reporting Act. You have federal regulations. Privacy Act, right here, bingo. This one as well. You have to, when you take that 300 multiple choice exam, and I passed, I did well on that. I had to do all the way up to Series 7. When you do this, you have your constitutional rights besides that. And Experian, Equifax, all of them, they're not following the rules. The Consumer Protection Bureau, let's just say you have a credit card, I'll just say from Chase as an example. Now Chase, don't get upset. This is just an example. You have a credit card. You get your statement. It comes in the mail. And it says, I didn't order flowers from New York City. What is this flowers from New York City? And it's, I don't know, $200 or $300. And they don't want to remove it, or they want to play games. That is considered credit card fraud. That's also a violation as well. See, I have this with me at all times. This is an RFD backup to protect you as well. I would recommend getting one of these. When you have that credit card, and let's just say there were multiple charges, or there was a card done, you have a right to representation. You get right on that phone and you get in touch with a lawyer. The first thing you should do, if any type of mail fraud, and this is even with lottery as well, this has to do with all the following types of fraud, you have to get a police report. The second thing you do, you make sure in that police report you get the detective's business card in that manner. When you get the detective's business card, you call your attorney up and they have to coordinate with each other. If it becomes where it's in a different state or it has to do anything with federal matters, you call them up and you say to them, hey, I think this has to go to the federal authorities. Or the lawyer is probably going to do this on your behalf. And they have to resolve it. Whether it's a credit card or whether it's a debit card or whether it's a check or etc. The bank is responsible under those privacy acts. They have to keep your information safe. If they don't do that, they're in violation of the policies and procedures of the rules. They can't say it's an act of God. Because if they say that's an act of God in front of a judge, the judge is going to laugh at them. Because the judge has the right to rule in your favor. And most of the times, they're going to rule in your favor. Now, Harold and I, when we were going down the rabbit's hole in the public defender's office, they had us investigate the previous election, as well as a list of other federal crimes. ID me as an example. Okay? This is the MIT little book. Alright? What is an algorithm? Most of you programmers and etc. have to take a basic programming. The reason why I'm bringing that up is my relative taught at that school. Besides he taught at that school, he left annotation notes for me so I can help a lot of people. He designed most of these patents and programs, so you don't have the rights that you think you have when it comes to violating constitutional rights. That's where the federal government has to start stepping in. You can't have ID me commit unemployment fraud during this pandemic. The thing is, I'm going to say something to you guys. I gave you enough evidence, and Harold gave you enough evidence to indict those places. They should have got a financial audit, and they should have been indicted. All those organizations work with BlackRock and Vanguard, and I don't, for the life of me, I don't understand why you guys don't think that constitutional law is invalid. You got 1,600 or I don't know, millions of people where they got their insurance or etc. affected. Medicare, Medicaid, HIPAA violation. How many penal codes, how many wire fraud, felony charges have this ID me caused? You have Cash App that committed business and personal identity theft. You have CBS, you have Fox, you have all these organizations that have stated it, and yet you want them to have a license. So, what's the end game here? Because according to what cybersecurity says, there's a difference between a misdemeanor and a felony crime. That's a felony crime. You got 5 to 10 people, you don't have 5 to 10 people. You have a class action lawsuit. It's like the HIPAA with the New York State, where they have patient advocacy. They have to be advocate for the patient before bringing them to the emergency room for a trauma or etc. Even if they get sick or they have the flu, they have to follow licenses, and you guys haven't been following those licenses. Besides the FTC, the FCC has, I'm sorry to say, you guys, you haven't been checking in with these TikToks and the Twitter, and not Twitter themselves, but you haven't been checking in with Facebook or Instagram on why you have famous people's accounts opened up without their permission. They didn't say, I give you permission to open up. They didn't sign a legal contract. You have to, Instagram, Facebook, you have to show them legal paper. Physical paper you have to show. You have to print it out and show it to them. When you change rules, you can't just email them. You have to physically show a paper. It's like tax returns. And that's another thing to all you people that do business with them. Your investors. Why should you be giving money to those people when they're taking your information and going on the dark web? And they're doing it. And the government isn't doing anything about it. I'm telling you that. And this is a serious matter, because you guys tried to do something unacceptable. You cannot go after a president of the United States and think that that's constitutionally correct. Another thing to this cause, Harold and I had given evidence months ago prior to this. This is why I'm bringing this up. You cannot hide information that the public needs to know about. You've been doing this for far too long. You're invading people's privacy by not even doing their job. And they have rights. And if they want to sue, they can sue. And it's not just the president. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, you want to lead down the rabbit hole of not fixing certain things with borders. You know, senators and congressmen can go to prison for this stuff. You're stealing taxpayer funds. And you're impeding on censorship besides the privacy that I also am going to explain. You cannot go and knock on someone's door and say, I'm with the FBI and I have to speak to so-and-so. You be the heck quiet and you tell them, listen, you want to talk to me, you're going to have to contact my attorney. I don't answer questions. And you close the door. That is your right. And that's what these people are doing. They're trying to bully and intimidate people. Now, when I was at Columbia University, I had to leave. I had no choice. I couldn't stay there to begin with. You know why I couldn't stay there to begin with? Because they weren't even following their own rules. And I know about your rules. And you ain't even following your own rules. And it has to do with a lot of this financial, legal, and medical matter. You cannot steal taxpayer funds and think you're getting away with it. It is the same thing for my relatives in Europe. My family members don't like this type of behavior. This is unacceptable. You cannot steal United States taxpayer funds like the UK, France, Spain, and Europe. You are not allowed to steal taxpayer funds. And you have every right to do an audit for your rights in the Constitution, as well as those other countries as well. They have every right to do that. Because you guys were just stealing money. Not only that, you were stealing money from the life and health insurance from the military. Besides that, you were stealing money from the CIA and all those other organizations' benefits. And you are not allowed to do that. You cannot steal taxpayer funds and manipulate it and launder money. And you did something in Vegas, which is ridiculous. You have every person in Vegas going crazy here because those people are all associated with the Arabian Peninsulas. Those people want their money back. You just can't. You cannot steal. I'm saying this to you as a person that's licensed and operator. You can't steal insurance licenses and etc. You go to prison. And those people in those other countries, being honest with you, they don't like stealing. They condone it. So thank you guys. Have a good day.